Welcome back, everybody. It's Important Work. This is the show called Important Work. I'm your host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with a very special guest and my friend, Dave Jenks. Dave, hello, sir.
Chris, good to be here, my friend. Thank you.
I'm just so excited to talk to you about important work because I know that I'm very attached to your important work, and I'm excited to explore what that is, how you discovered it, what you've done along the way, and then maybe towards the end of our conversation, talking about how others can start to find their important work. So,
good.
So tell me about you. Like, who are you for those listening, and how would you describe your important work?
Well, I'm a seeker, as is the title of my my new book.
Yeah.
Because I've always been curious in my life. But it's interesting when I got to thinking about this idea of my important work, and it really has evolved over the years. And my experience of other people is that for everyone, our journey of important work evolves, it emerges, sometimes with surprises in it. You don't quite know the turns you're going to take. And it's okay. You know, Jim Rohn said you can only see to the next bend in the river, which I think is an important thing to understand. You got your oars in the water and you're rowing as hard as you can, but you know, really how far out you can see. Now, some people have the ability to really see a long way out, and maybe they have a very defined career path, like becoming a doctor or an attorney or some profession where they really have to do a lot of preparation and they love it. And the more they're in it, they love it and they really get with it. But here's my experience. I began, I think, as first of all, just a personal high achiever. I wanted to do well at whatever I did. So I studied hard in school. I worked hard in athletics. When I got my first jobs, I just plunged in and tried to be very successful at my work. And then I found myself wanting to do something that was a little more of service. So I moved into psychology, first personal counseling psychology, and then I moved into educational psychology. I wanted to understand motivation and learning. Those were the two big things. The reason I worked on a doctorate in educational psychology was I wanted to understand motivation and learning. But what I understood was that my own heart was not in the world of academia. It was not in the world of scholars and people exchanging ideas on a high level. I wanted to be in a world where I could get something done. And what was interesting about that was when I all of a sudden realized that I'm a builder. I'm a leader builder. I did this when I was young, and I was even in my own family. I built the Jenks Home Library where we lent out books to neighborhood kids. I built a local baseball diamond for us to play on. I mean, I orchestrated it. You know, I raised a little money for it. I got people to help with the labor and the work, and I did that. Well, then a great mentor of mine, Dr. Cliff Thorne, asked me to come back and be the director of my alumni association. State University of New York at Albany had been a teacher's college, and it was now going to become a major university. And he said, we don't have a professional alumni relations program and a fundraising, a development program. And I can't think of I was like in my late 20s, right? I mean, I was kind of wet behind the ears. And he said, I think you're the guy that can lead this. Well, I mean, I did. I took our fundraising up to a level it had never, ever been, funded a solar heated alumni house, if you can imagine that. That was back in the 70s, a solar heated alumni house. Yeah. And it was a brilliant idea, and it really got people excited and allowed them to identify with the new campus. Anyway, so what happened was I got in the world of business through a friend of mine. I had become an instructor. So there's the other thing that was part of this. Rather than being a personal therapist, I really found my greatest strength was in being a teacher. And if I would have to say there's a theme under all of my business success and leadership, it's been, I've always had the mind of a teacher. Yeah. What is it I need to understand? So I have to be a student first. And then what can I give to others? And of course, I did that, you know, basically through the rest of my work.
Yeah. I love the, there's a lot of nuances that just came up in as you were giving us sort of the backstory, because I feel like there are clues. If you look back in life, you'll notice common threads of things where when you show up, you feel strong. Like you said, you're a builder.
Yes. And I felt I was. I mean, I felt, first of all, it's interesting because when I first got into sales and marketing, and I'd never been in sales and marketing, my first work in the world of business beyond my alumni association and kind of doing fundraising, my first work in the real was to be VP of sales and marketing for a graphic arts company, a printing and design company. Right. And I had never been in selling. So I went to the Dale Carnegie Institute and I took the Dale Carnegie sales course. And then they asked me to become an instructor, which is, it's interesting. See, it's like sometimes I think in life you answer callings, right? Somebody gives you a calling and it feels right and you answer it. So even though that wasn't a profession in the sense I had my real job, this was like more of a, you just did it one night a week, and so it wasn't a profession in that sense, or it wasn't a real job. You didn't get paid that much. But I really learned how much I love to teach and how I love, and the Dale Carnegie system does it so well. They have mastered the art of teaching and guiding others to be great teachers that cause impact for their students. So anyway, that got me into that. And then that's what I said. Like you said, you listen, you hear those signals. But the one thing I would say to people, and it's a little twist I have on modern kind of new age wisdom, people say, do what you love and the money will follow. I don't believe that. I believe love what you do and the money will follow. In other words, whatever you do, love it. Love it. Give it your best. Say to yourself, what am I learning here? What am I gaining? What skills, what knowledge that I can maybe use later or transfer more? What would build the reputation of me being really good at whatever this job is? Now, that will things will hook. Things will catch you. And then that'll lead you to your next opportunity that you can approach with love. So I think it's love what you're doing now, and it'll lead to where you're supposed to go.
Where is that moment? I think there's like, as you go through life, you amass these experiences, you collect experiences that sort of develop you, they make you who you are. And then there's this moment, at least for me, there's this moment where I'm like, okay, what I'm doing doesn't satisfy my soul anymore, and I want to do important work in the world. How do you know that moment, and where do you go when you start to find that friction?
I think it's a more positive moment. I would encourage people to have a more positive moment, to say this, okay, what do I love most about what I'm doing? And where is it missing what I really want to do? See, so it's not so much focusing on the deficit or the void, but it's focusing on what is the base I'm building from. Because I think all careers and all important work builds on a base. Over life, this is my wisdom. I always say this I said it to my grandson who's just going off to college. Actually, he's going now, he's working on a PhD. But when he first came to me, he said, Grandpa, what would be your advice? And I said, learn what you need to know and build the skill that you want to have. In other words, every time you take a course, say, what's the knowledge I can use in the future? And what's the skill that will enable me to use that in the future? And if you start to think about building skills, I call it bandwidth. If you start to look at yourself and say, okay, I'm building my bandwidth. Right now, I've got this. Well, what if I added speaking? What if I added selling? What if I added writing? What if I added negotiation? What if I added then these areas of specialized knowledge, like you know me? I sort of accidentally got into the world of real estate, not because I loved real estate. Not because I was even a real estate practitioner. I got into it because I wanted to be a business consultant and a teacher. And I had taught the Dale Carnegie sales course, so I knew selling inside and out. Did I know real estate selling? I just had to learn it. I just had to become a student. So every time you take on a new venture, you first become a student of the game. Right. And when you become a student of that game, then you can decide whatever you want to do it. You can practice it, you can lead it, you can teach it. There's lots of options that you have.
Where do you feel like most people get stopped or stuck? They get it wrong, trying to find their important work.
They focus on the deficit. They come from dissatisfaction. See, I always love the saying, be grateful for what you have while going after what you want. So I think you always begin with gratitude. Okay, I'm glad I have this job. I'm glad that I'm learning this thing. I'm glad I have this bad boss because I'm learning how to deal with difficult people. I'm glad that there's people here that I don't get along with because now I'm learning how to get along with people. Not just because they happen to be like me, but because I've really learned this skill about how to connect with other people. And so I think you come from there, and then you say, what might be the next thing? So for example, when I got sort of accidentally into the real estate business, but I was bringing some real maturity and a bandwidth of skills. See, that's the other thing. I came into the real estate business in Century 21 as a management consultant with this bandwidth of skills no one else had. I mean, they just didn't have it at the level I had it. And so that meant that when there was an opportunity to become director of training for a 3-state division, I was the guy, right? Why? Because I showed up I loved my work and I did it well. And so I became that guy. And then I looked and said, well, I like this idea of being a regional director. I like this idea of running the whole show. Well, that just hit me, right? Well, then I had to learn some new skills because I took some tests that showed I wasn't assertive enough to be a really strong leader. So I had to expand my bandwidth again by building my assertiveness skills. And I did. I consciously did it. I took risks. I got more assertive. I, tried things I had never done before. And all of that led to this point where I became the leader. In fact, it was funny. The guy who hired me, he had been the regional director in Rochester, New York, and then he had gone to become the executive vice president of Century 21 out in California. I mean, the whole company. Wow. And he got replaced by another guy who was in a better position. I tried for the position, but I didn't get it. But then I learned and I developed and I got more assertive and I got more into what the leadership role of being a CEO would really be like. And I went out to interview him and he said, well, Dave, we've got lots of candidates here and they're really all very talented. So I could tell he was doing the takeaway, right? He was going, Dave, I love you. I had to give you this opportunity to interview for it, but he's taking it away. And I stopped and I said, Marv, listen, the man sitting across from you today is not the one you left in Rochester 3 years ago. And he went, whoa.
Wow.
And I got the job.
Wow. I love that.
I know.
I really,
so it's funny. So that led to then higher levels of leadership with them. So that was wonderful. But what's interesting is sometimes if you do the right thing, others will help you make your decision. Well, I tell you what, sometimes you have to make a decision that's right, but they're not going to like it. So for example, I was divisional president of Century 21, 7 states out of Dallas, Texas. And I won't tell the whole story, but I had the chance to save my top broker owner in the most competitive market I had, which was Dallas, to save her with the company when she wanted to go to Keller Williams. And I cut a deal with her to stay. And it was one of the best, most smartest business deals I'd ever cut. I knew it. I had it all legally locked. I had it all. I had the money and the risk reduced and all that stuff. And she was going to expand with us. And we had a big celebration dinner when I did it, but I knew it was not exactly in the game plan of Century 21. So when it finally came out, I didn't try and hide it, but when it finally came out, I got called on the carpet and I got fired for overstepping my authority. Oh, now that was the best thing that ever happened. Why? Because guess where I went? Keller Williams. Because this was the new company that was going to take over the industry, and I knew it. I could see it. And I didn't do it on purpose, but they forced the issue, right? They forced it by firing me, and then I joined Keller Williams, and the rest is history. Number one company in the industry.
I think it's so funny because there's this thing that happens, I think, at least for me, I get very heady. I get very intellectual and logical about things. And as you just were describing, there's this intuition piece that comes in where you're like, I just knew it. I knew this was good. And I think sometimes we deflect our intuition and default to logic. Like speak to that a little bit, like about the role of intuition.
I think it's a great insight. And one of the things you learn as you build more self-confidence and you encourage yourself more, and you begin to really understand your own wisdom based on experience and thought. There's nothing, we're not saying don't think. I know you're not. And there's some things in life where you got to get very analytic. If you're doing budgets for a multi-million-dollar company, if you're planning the steps to get to the goals you want, there's going to be an analytic part. When we wrote the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, I mean, there was a part of that was very analytic. We outlined all the job responsibilities, 172 tasks in a real estate agent's life, and how they organize, and then how you delegate them as you add team members. Now, that was an incredibly analytic exercise, but it was the magic, underneath a best-selling book and a book that's changed the industry. So sometimes you have to get analytic, but to get back to your point, I think one of the things that happens as you get more mature and you get a bigger bandwidth and you have experience is that you start to trust your intuition. Now, you don't just blindly do things, but you listen to that inner voice
Yeah.
that's giving you a hint. And often it's more than a hint, and it's really, and that's why I think taking some quiet time, right?
Yeah.
Having in your life contemplative quiet time where you can let that inner voice speak is a big deal.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you know you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
How did you learn to recognize your inner voice?
Well, one is I gave myself permission to have alone time. Now, I'm not a highly social person. I'm very gregarious. If I'm in a setting and it's a business setting, I connect with a lot of people. I meet them fast. I make a good impression. I get to know them. I listen to them. So that goes well. But I love my alone time. Mm-hmm. And I would just say a lot of people fill their life with activity and relationships that don't necessarily serve them. They just mark time, right? They just sort of get you along. So I would say I had to learn, take that alone time. And also take meditative time. It was interesting. Back in the days of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, you remember him with the guy? Oh, you may not remember him. You're too young, but
maybe.
he was the guy that guided the Beatles into meditation. Okay, nice. Wow. And he became famous along with them. And well, at the time that he built this international organization. So there was an outfit in Albany, New York that was the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi Institute of Albany. And they taught meditation. So I went there and I took their lesson and probably overpaid for it. But I learned about meditation and mantras. And what I learned later as a scientist was it's just called the relaxation response. That there is, if you quiet your mind and get in a very quiet place with no interruptions, and you close your eyes, no distractions, and you close your eyes and you focus on your breathing, and then you start to repeat a mantra. It can be whatever sound or whatever you want. There's no special one. I mean, the Institute said there was a special one just for me. Right. I think it was a good marketing ploy. But the point is, you just do this mantra and you will go into what they call the relaxation response, which what it does is, now that neuroscience has studied this deeper, it takes you from the beta wavelength in your brain, which is your normal activity level in the monkey mind and boom, 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 and things going on. Yeah. And it drops you down into alpha, which is relaxation. And then if you stay there long enough, it drops you into theta, which is where real healing and intuition takes place. And so I learned to do that. And I wouldn't say that I'm not like a monk. I don't meditate all the time, but I probably at least once a day meditate for 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah.
I love that.
And particularly if I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feeling any sort of anxiety or too many things on my mind, it's jumping around a lot, then I will take the time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Well, bring me to Seeker, because I know this is sort of the next chapter. This is the next.
Well, what's happened was, so what happens is so I was doing my thing with Keller Williams, over 12 years. We wrote 5 best-selling books, including the all-time best-selling book ever in the history of real estate, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Very proud of that. A lot of work went into that, right? And so it kind of just came to that point where it was time to leave, where I had done all I was going to do in real estate. I'd written the books. Gary Keller wanted to take kind of a different role for himself in the growth of the company from there. And instead of kind of sharing the stage with me and sharing the mental space with me, I think he wanted to do it on his own. And I got that message. And you know what? For me, here it was. It was the time to make a life change. I didn't know what it was a change toward, but I knew it was a change. It wasn't there. I didn't need to stay in the real estate business, although I still love real estate and I still do real estate seminars. It's easy to do, and it's something that's in my bandwidth for sure. But I wanted to use this time of my life to then, which I didn't exactly know when it evolved. I started a company called Free Enterprise Warriors, which was about taking all the lessons I'd learned to help entrepreneurs. I helped Chaz Wilson write his book 5+1, which is a great book for entrepreneurs. I mean, to me, it's the best book ever written for entrepreneurs. If somebody wants to understand what it takes to run a locally owned business that book is it. And I helped him write it. And I built the curriculum for Master Network. So I had moved into the general space. But then, as you just hinted at, I kind of reached this point where I said, I want to give back to the world. So my important work, whatever wisdom I've achieved. And I have to be a little careful of that because it can be kind of an ego thing. Oh, I have the wisdom that everyone should listen to. And I don't know about that, but I think I've earned the right by my studies and by my work and by my writing to share that wisdom. And I wanted to do it not just in the narrow area of business, although my book Seeker does have sections on business and on leadership and on entrepreneurial success. It has that in there, but it also has a real look at relationships, a real look at personal growth and mental health, at physical health, and then at economics and politics. What's the global picture for what makes sense, and what makes sense from the point of view of a healthy society. Yeah. So, and I know you and I are going to take this to the season 2, because I created a 19 blog post, audio podcast series called Seeker Wisdom. And I did those, and that's going to be season 1. But here's the thing of it. The important work that I want to do now is to really get people thinking at a higher level about all these aspects of life. Yeah. And I'm hoping that will kind of calm the world down a little bit. Yeah. And get people talking more civilly and openly with each other, and more deeply and more deeply. Yeah. And I think the final piece of that, and this is a piece for me, it's been my spiritual evolution. So, I went through the typical, believe what you believe because that's what you were taught. And then I went into the question all that and become I wasn't an atheist, but I was, was certainly a serious agnostic. Sure. And then through a lot of different ways, I've worked my way back to my understanding of God as a higher power, as the all connected power that we can have access to as human beings. And it can power our life. Yeah. And that, I'm excited about that. Yeah.
I'm interested in, I'm excited about it too. So all of you listening, like season 2 of Seeker is coming, and I'm really excited that Dave and I get to explore this trifecta of, relationships, spirituality, and politics or governance.
Yes.
This is gonna be really fun. That's gonna be so fun. I'm so looking forward to that. Yeah. What are some of the characteristics of important work from where you sit?
I think it's that it has meaning for others, that it's a service oriented. I think it begins with an attitude of service, that one of the things that are fundamental to all human beings is that we are here to serve. Now, you can serve in very unique ways, right? So for example, I've just become very enamored with Alex Honnold and the movie that just came out by National Geographic called Free Solo, where they film him free climbing, that is without ropes, without any protection at all. He free climbs the 3,200 straight up granite face of El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. Wow. It's an amazing feat. And you would say, well, what's he doing this for? Well, he's doing this to explore the degree to which humans can achieve something, right? And so he's following what he loves, no question. And his gift back is he raises the standard for everybody, right? So it doesn't have to be something where you are altruistically serving others. It means that you're doing something well that benefits others or gives them a model to live by. Yeah. Right. So I think it's got that aspect of it. Yeah. I think the other aspect it has of it is that it's very learning based. In other words, that there's a degree to which you are pushing the envelope of knowledge and awareness and performance, right? And so in work, you learn how to be better at goal setting. You learn how to be better at orchestrating things. You learn how to be more engineering oriented where the pieces have to fit together. You get better at relationships, because I think service has to do not only with what you do, but how you do it, how you communicate with people and how they feel after they've worked with you. So I think it has that. And then I think in the end, it doesn't have to begin with this. I think in the end, it has a very spiritual connection that you come to realize the connectivity of your work with the bigger universe.
I love that. That's so good. That's so good. Well, let's kind of wrap with, if people listening to this are thinking about their important work, they're in a space of what I'm doing, I'm ready for what's next. I feel there's something brewing inside of me that needs to come out. What are some of the most logical or pragmatic places for people to start giving that shape?
I think the most important thing is, again, to look at what you're doing and say, what is it about this that I really can do well, that I really enjoy? Okay, so I know I'm ready for something new, but let me not just sort of jump. Let me just, because a lot of people jump and then they jump to something and they jump again, and it's always the greener pasture, and they haven't built a foundation. So then I would take the moment to reflect on, if I look back on whatever the last years of my life are, what skills have I gained? You know, what learning have I done? What knowledge or wisdom can be very experiential, doesn't have to be book learning. What do I know? What am I good at? And it's really good to look at yourself and be able to say, I'm really good at this. I mean, I may not be world class, but I'm really good at it. Because a lot of people don't take time to acknowledge their gifts, right? Their God-given gifts or their God-given talents or the things that they've learned. So I think you always start from this point of view of, I have a foundation, and now I want to say, what's the next right place for me to take this foundation? And that usually means that you're going to work through relationships. You're going to say, who do I know that's in that arena that I could talk to? Just to say, what's that like? What's that work like? And who should I talk to in that work? It's what Richard Bowles, in his wonderful book that's in its 12th or 14th edition, called What Color is Your Parachute? Oh, yeah. So I would highly recommend, if someone wants to make a change in their life, that they get that book, What Color is Your Parachute? Because it's a great way to self-assess interests, strengths, abilities, skills, and then to explore where does that go next. The other thing I would look for, and one of the reasons to do a really good job everywhere you are, is to say, where is someone of influence who could maybe take me to my next place? Yeah. In other words, I would tell you, this has been one of the fortunate things in my life. And I think it's because whatever I did well, right? Whatever I did, I said, I'm going to do this really well. Even if it was mundane, right? Even if it was plowing a field as a farm assistant, it would be like, what do I want to do it well. So because I had that reputation of doing things well, then I got called to opportunities. I mean, I really got called to more opportunities than I developed. Yeah. But I would have great people who would say, Dave, I think we need you to do this. And I'd go, here I am, let's have at it. Yeah. So I would say that will happen more to people when they really let let their light shine in everything they do. Yeah.
I love that. Wow. This is so good. I could keep talking to you for a long time.
Me too, with you, Chris.
I so enjoy your perspective.
Thank you.
If people want to learn about Seeker Wisdom, connect with you somehow, where should they go?
Well, I think the easiest place is go to seekerwisdom.com. So it's those two words joined together, SEEKER, wisdom.com. The other is just go to www.davejenks.com. I really have a lot of probably over 150 hours of audio on there of things I've done, real estate training I've done, entrepreneurial training I've done. I've done a number of other series. I took the kind of the audio part, the preparatory part of the book 5+1. I did as an audio series called Free Enterprise Warriors: The Path of Courageous Entrepreneurs. So you can go there, but Seeker Wisdom, just go to Seeker Wisdom and sign up, by the way. And there's also a Facebook site called Seeker Wisdom. They can go on Facebook and they can ask to join. It has to be approved, but just if they ask to join Seeker Wisdom, and then we're posting on there on a regular basis.
So I love the work that you're up to. I'm glad that I get to be a part of it. And thank you for being a guest to my show.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be here.
Take care. Yeah. Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.